order. And does anyone have communications they'd like to make to council on any item that's on the agenda? Anyone in the room? Anyone online? All right, and given that, would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Let me get my sound on. Erin, can you hear me?
Turn your sound on.
Yeah, you're like this on this.
Thank you. Solved it. I turned my sound down. Erin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Councilmember Christy Camp.
Here.
Councilmember John Hagenow.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Kerr.
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Parmet.
Hi.
Hi. Councilmember Dan Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor Ken Riley. Thank you. 6 present.
Again, one last chance at communications council. Raise your hands.
No.
No. In that case, I'll declare communications council closed, and the first presentation is preferred. Welcome.
And actually with building health, we swapped ourselves.
Oh.
But my name is Colin Ender. I'm the executive director of Buildings Hope, Summit County. But I am here with Bert. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of my presentation before Carla gets on to speak about our joint effort to get the Soul Center up and how that's been going so far. So we are kind of in the same building in mind for this time. So I'm happy to be. So Building Hope, just here to talk a little bit about how things went in 2025 and where we're at so far in 2026 for our programming. We did a survey in 2025, a community survey that indicated that nearly half of the residents that responded to our survey said that there was a time in the past year that they needed mental health services. So if we think about that, that's almost half of our community that needs mental health services. And we serve over 3,000 community members each year at Building Hope. And those are duplicated because some of the clients are engaged in multiple different programs. But we do measure total reach through the number of clients that we serve in our programs, our scholarship programs, navigation programs, attendees at our trainings, our connectedness events, type events, etc. In our support groups, and then we send We Care packages to both attempt survivors of suicide and suicide survivors, family members, and friends. And our stigma reduction campaigns are also meant for suicide prevention and stigma reduction, means reduction, and those reach almost 30,000 people here in Summit County, living here legally through radio, television, and digital ads. And so we've had a lot of reach here in the last year, and we have a lot of great stats to talk about today and to share. And our programming is continuing to expand and to grow with the community needs and the gaps that we find in services. This past year, we've really been focusing on connection and the quiet threads that really hold us together as a community. If there's a person in the community that needs help, we want to really make sure that they know, first of all, that they can reach out for help, that it's not abnormal to feel this way, and that they know that there are places and resources to get that help, and that they have the capacity to be able to be served in that way. So our community has the capacity to serve them. And that connection is really what we're trying to continue to enhance in our community, so that nobody feels like they're isolated, that there's a sense of belonging, and that everyone feels like they're being taken care of by our community. Our provider network has grown substantially, and we're really proud of that in the community. And we've really worked hard to make sure that our provider community is also accessing insurance benefits and getting credentialed with insurances so that folks are able to see people within their insurance benefit platforms, which is really nice. So I'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of these programs. Our mental health scholarship program in 2025, we gave out 531 scholarships. And that was a little bit down from years that we've had in the past. But we do feel like that was in an effort to really connect people based on their insurance and get people into care that was more sustainable for them and didn't have a 12-session limit. So at the same time that we had a decreased number of scholarships, we also saw that we had an increased number of folks that were served in our navigation program, which is just that kind of allowing for clients to be able to see somebody based on their insurance or just needed access and had the resources, capital means to access their maybe private pay or through their insurance benefits. We also have noticed that number in 2025 that was slightly down has already crept back up in 2026. There was a big change in the insurance landscape, as you guys all know, in Medicaid. And so we did not see that people were able to get onto benefits and get access to those. And so we've had, in January alone, we had a 20% increase between January of 25 and January of 26 for our scholarship program. So we do think that those numbers are going to go back up this year for our total 2026 year. We have 212 total providers in network with our scholarship program, and that's between Summit County, Eagle County, and some on the Front Range. These are providers for children, families, and Spanish-speaking providers. Our community wellness program is our program that's really oriented towards suicide prevention programming. So we do mental health trainings and we engage the community members or businesses or certain cohorts of folks, a lot with CNC to do mental health and suicide prevention trainings. So we work with providers and facilitated trainers for mental health navigation, QPR, which is question, persuade, refer, it's very suicide specific. And then our mental health navigation training program is about all of the resources that are available in Summit County. So somebody can have more knowledge and information about what's available in Summit. We had 29 different mental health training sessions in 2025. And in those surveys, 85% of residents say that they are aware of the resources that are available in Summit County. So in our community survey, we're also noticing that more of the respondents are aware of what's going on and what's available in Summit County, which is great news for us. We also lead a suicide prevention action team in the community that brings together folks from different parts of the community, either survivors, people with lived experiences, or people that are working in the mental health field to really talk about the gaps and the needs and suicide prevention activities and really that effort as a group facilitation. We do resiliency trainings as well, and we're always a part of various community outreach events. So any kind of town events or community events that are happening in Summit County, we try to be able to have a presence there. We're also doing a lot with our Booze Less campaign. So trying to lead the effort in allowing for people to have an alternative option to drinking. So the Booze Less effort is all about moderating your drinking and just recognizing that maybe you can have a mocktail instead of a cocktail, or drink some water instead of that one last drink at the end of the night. So that's really going well as well. And people are plumbing onto that program, and we're getting invited to all sorts of big events like Oktoberfest and Breckenridge, which is great to have that option there. And then facilitating connection is one of our main goals at Building Hope. We really want to make sure that people in Summit County feel connected and know where to connect. And so with that, we have different varying levels of connectedness events. So we have 4 different options now. We have our general connectedness events that are open and available to anyone in the community that lives or works in Summit County. And we provide those connectedness events throughout the month. And then we also have hype events that are specific to young people, and that's been around since 2021. We also have bilingual events that are facilitated mostly in Spanish. And then new in 2025, or in like September of 2025, we launched our family connectedness events that are really geared towards parents and children or caregivers and children. And those have really been taking off so far at the end of 25 and into 2026. They fill up really quickly and people are really excited to have that opportunity to do more connection. So supporting the mental health system, in addition to all of the programming that we do with our community members, we also really want to support our provider network. And this really does enhance the resources that are then available to the community. So we offer mini grants to help support folks to get continuing education, licensure, supervision. They're also able to get funding to provide support groups to the community. And then we also have billing and credentialing services, which again, to help enhance our scholarship program, we wanted to find out what was the biggest barrier for providers to accepting insurance. And they said that it was really hard to bill and really time consuming and frustrating to get onto credentialed with insurance companies. And the therapist time is their money, right? So they're not seeing clients when they're doing that administrative work. So Building Hope worked with a third party credentialer and biller. And so we've been able to get a number of therapists, 84% of our therapists in our network and building in the local network of Summit County, which is about 121 providers. 84% of those therapists are now credentialed with at least one insurance company, which is a huge, huge, huge increase from years ago. It used to be that there was about 4 therapists that would accept insurance outside of agency settings. So we have increased that number substantially, which we're really happy about. And again, that allows people to use the benefit that they're paying for. It does allow them to not have a time limit on their sessions that they're able to see their therapist for. And that does not make somebody ineligible for our program, for our scholarship program. They can still get a scholarship if they have insurance. Sometimes people have to meet their deductible, and their deductible is very high before the insurance kicks in. So, et cetera, we'll still work with people and make sure that they're matched up with the right provider. We also do mixers every quarter for the providers to make sure that they feel like they have a networking capability to work with one another, so that they know each other, they know specialties, and they can refer to one another, and so that it's very connected. And again, that's all in the essence of supporting our community members. So they know that they are able to get the right resources wherever they access the system from. And then the Strong Future Initiative, which I know y'all are a part of and contribute to, which I super, super appreciate. And it looks like my slides are all jumbled with how it came through with the prevention intervention. So I apologize about that. But this is to show, so the Strong Future Behavioral Health Initiative is through the 1A dollars that were approved in 2018 and are coming up to be on the ballot in 2026 again. And so we're just really highlighting the great work that's been done in the behavioral health realm. We have currently in 25 and in 26, 19 different programs in the community served through 11 different organizations that are being supported in some way through these dollars. And that has enhanced our mental health system entirely. You can see from this slide that there are resources that are supported on prevention, intervention, treatment, and crisis services. Is this me? Oh, that's okay. I didn't know if I was missing something. So that is just to shed light on the fact that we are really building and enhancing a behavioral health system with those Strong Future dollars, and just really making sure that the taxpayers understand that their money is going to very good use, and making sure that they understand that all of these programs would not exist in the way that they do today without that funding that we have through Strong Future. And Building Hope, our part of the Strong Future initiative, is to help make recommendations and facilitate a community citizens initiative that makes recommendations, reviews programs, does evaluations on the programs, and then makes those recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners so that they can then make informed decisions about where the fund goes in the community. And so that's Building Hope helps to facilitate those programs or those meetings with the committee. And then this is just another avenue of sharing what we do with the Strong Future work. This is really just about sustainability now. So we've created a system before the Strong Future initiative. We really did not have many resources in the community when it came to behavioral health. We had a number of different agencies like Mind Springs at the time, was previously the Senate Community Care Clinic, now elevated, was doing some integrated care, but now we have a handful of private providers, and that was about it for resources. And now we have all sorts of different programs. Like I said, there's 11 different organizations with 19 programs that are serving mental health, and that's not all. There's other programs that aren't even served through the mental health, through the Strong Future initiative. But it's really just to say that we have grown our system of care here in Summit County, and it's something to be proud of for the community for sure. And that is all I have to say about Building Hope. So I'm happy to answer any questions about Building Hope and just where we are today in 2026. We're continuing to move forward and continuing to do our programming and serve the community. We have moved into the Soul Center with FERC, and we're super happy to be there. I don't know, some of you may not know that Building Hope was started under the doors of FERC, under the building. We were incubated there. And so for us, it's a full circle moment of kind of coming back together. And it has really been beneficial to our clients to be able to access all of the resources that they may need. We have a lot of shared clients through the scholarship program and the health insurance programs that they do, the food market and the thrift store. And it's really important for us to be able to do more handoffs and integrate our systems and really be able to share with our clients what we all do so that they can get all of their needs met in one building and one space. So that has been, again, another amazing community effort that we built that space and made that possible.
Any questions?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Was it? Yeah, see them. So I was wondering, I know that you, on the slide that kind of got jumbled up a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked about the SMART team and then also the STAR team. So first, easy question. Could you educate us on what the STAR team is?
Yeah. So the STAR team is basically jail-based behavioral health services.
Okay.
So anyone that's incarcerated or in serving time in the jail is served through the STAR team, and that's through case management services. They also do their group therapy, and they have a lot of access to navigation outside. So once they are released, hopefully, or move to their next place, their case managers will help navigate them through that process. They also do a lot of detox in the jail, which is really unique and cool here, for help with stress management and addiction purposes. And then the SMART team is more of the community facing. So SMART is the co-responder crisis unit that goes out into the community, and they're a paired response with a law enforcement technician and a clinician, so a mental health clinician, and they also have case management for that. Every 911 call that has a mental health nexus to it, the SMART team will be tagged into, and then the SMART team will be able to call off the typical police unit that might be there if it's safe and deemed okay for them to be there. But they will be able to then assess the situation and help serve the client's needs from that level from a mental health perspective.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
My question was going to go back to the SMART team in particular, right? There was a lot of news recently with the budget process and the sheriff office and impacts to services, and one of the ones that kept getting brought up was the SMART team. Have you seen any impacts from the resource realignment, we'll call it, that had to happen specifically with the SMART team and the ability to serve the community that way?
So I can't necessarily speak for them 100%, but what I will say that what I've gathered from their information is that the SMART team has done a really good job of still continuing to be able to service the community with 3 full teams rather than that 4th team that they had. So they did end up with the budget cuts cutting one of the 4th team that they had. And that team was able to serve some of the like middle of the night hours. So what the SMART team has done is shift their on hours so that there's just gaps of like 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night on some of the days of the week. So they're really not missing that much time. And those were the lowest volume of calls times that they were able to shift that service. So to my knowledge, they have not noticed a huge impact on having that team lost. I would say that there's also Paragon Behavioral Health Connections, which now in 2026 will be opening a walk-in center in the community, which is going to be a big service that will enhance what's available in the community. Paragon and SMART are able to work really well together. Paragon does our mobile crisis, which is a 24/7 service. It's not a paired response, so it doesn't come through 911. Doesn't have the law enforcement technician side. So if there's ever a situation where there's an active suicide in place going on, or there's a weapon involved, or the person is very agitated and potentially violent, that will be where SMART team is more involved. Paragon is there for folks that are on the like maybe one step down level of urgency, but not engaged in suicidal like action at the moment, and they're able to then assess the situation. So I think having both has been really helpful for that decrease in the 3 teams, 2 to 3 teams.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of going back to big pictures,
Sure.
recognizing that strong teachers need to go to the voters.
Yes.
And part of that is that people say, how are they doing? What are they, you know? And there's a whole bunch of component parts and being involved in some of those myself.
Sure.
The question is, I think about how this will be sold to the communities. What are the metrics? How are we doing? I mean, if you go down to a level of suicides, you know, has that, you know, have we been successful? Have we had a lot?
Yeah.
You know, can you kind of explain how we know if how big of a problem it is, and how we can prove our success or
Sure. Well, so yes, we have noticed that over the last 8 years, our suicide numbers each year have gone down and have been lower than they were back in 2017. 2016, it was 13. So we have noticed that we have gone down in numbers. However, this year, I've recently found out that we have 7 suicides already in the county, which is substantial from what it's been in the past couple of years. So last year we had 5, which was higher. The year before that, it was 3, I think, and 2 before that. So we haven't seen that decrease in suicides, and now with this 510 is causing that exactly, but that is something to pay attention to for sure for us. But how we are measuring and knowing is all of these different programs have guidelines with the county and reporting data with the county, how many people they're serving, what their reporting numbers look like, what their clients are saying, what things are going now, are they getting better or not better, and things like that. So we are keeping track of that data, and we'll be able to share all of that data from the county's perspective once we start doing more of that public facing campaign.
just to follow up on that? One of the things that's recently annual doctor check.
Sure.
And one of the questions you always ask is, have you been depressed in the last 6 months? I said, yes. Okay, ticky.
Yeah.
And then they move on. I mean, the reality is everybody's depressed at some point. So I don't know how those kind of questions go to the doctors. They could distort.
What should happen is what you're doing on those check boxes is there's probably more than one. Have you been depressed in the last year? There's a number of questions that should be screening. And if you're saying yes to a number of those, and you get a certain number, it's called a PHQ-9 that you're usually doing, you go to the doctor's office and they have that assessment for you. We are at more and more doctor's offices, and anytime you go into elevated, they have integrated care. And at High Country Health, they have it as well. So they have behavioral health clinicians that work alongside the medical professionals. So if you get a number, a score that's higher than what it should be, quote unquote, you will then be given a warm referral with a behavioral health technician or therapist. And so that behavioral health warm referral and handoff will be ignited and initiated based on the score that you get. So if you haven't received that, you probably haven't checked off the number of boxes that you need to, right? But it does initiate a conversation at least, and that's part of the overall healthcare that we're trying to integrate more, as mental health and physical health are one and the same. Brain and your body are all connected and working together. So one doesn't functioning right, it has an impact on the other. So that's something that we're trying to get more common in mainstream America.
I just know when we have this ballot, people will be questioning a lot, and that's the kind of thing because you're distorting it, but that needs to be solved correctly.
Yeah, and there
Connecting
is
to help.
which I want to say thank you to you all. I know that you had conversations with the other towns about providing financial support to get a survey going into the community. I thought that was all confirmed. I apologize, misinformation. But there is going to be a survey that goes out in the community that then it helps understand how the voters feel about things and what they need more information about.
Sure.
A few points.
Yeah.
The challenge up here is the turnover in personnel. So many new people to the community, and if they were to show up and they are depressed, the work that it takes to figure out where can I get help seems daunting.
Right.
And at the risk of sounding critical, some of the phrases that we use to label our social services sound really good, but don't tell me what that means. It took me a couple of years before I figured out what FERC meant. Everybody talking about FERC, and I think we were all having a little upset stomach. But anyway, how do you reach out to those who aren't reading newspapers, who aren't, well, you might have ads on the radio. How do you get to people who need to understand what resources are available?
Yeah, so we do a lot of social media outreach. We do a lot of radio ads. We do a lot of work in the community, in the Summit Lately. We do a lot of community outreach events. So anytime there's events like First Fridays, or there were Third Thursdays in Breckenridge, and there's various community events going on all over the county, try to table that all the time so that people do have access to our resources. We definitely try to get into other organizations' newsletters like the Chamber and lots of different options to share our resources.
That sounds great. I think let me move on to our how many full-time employees do you have at the?
We have 7 full-time employees.
Okay, so on that next slide, I don't know who's controlling this. The pie chart, yeah, that was really helpful. So if you add the admin, like it looks like almost half the money is coming from Strong Futures.
Yeah.
And what would that amount to?
So in our full Strong Future, here I can share with you each of the pie charts. So we have from our Strong Future community programs, it's about 33.4% of our budget. So in 2025, it was about 700K. And then our admin and operations is about 400.
Total that. How much are you pulling from Strong Futures?
A little over $1 million.
Okay. Yeah. So on the other side of the coin, Strong Futures goes a lot of places.
Yeah.
Which percentage of their pie do you get? Do you know?
Of the overall total?
Yes.
Ooh, I would have to look at that. That's a great question.
I feel like
And I can look at that.
can, will, or will not be part of helping the community understand this decision that's ahead. And this is a period of time where people are really thinking twice about where their money is going.
Sure.
And I look at the money you're getting from state grants, which are possibly at risk.
Sure.
And you mentioned gaps, service gaps. So that tells me there could be growing need for what you do.
Yes,
And
and
growing
the strong future work isn't necessarily all building hope. So when I talk about the gaps that are in the community, it's building hope's role to know and to have access to and knowledge of what those gaps that exist in the community are, so that then we can help the county and the community help fill those gaps, not necessarily through our.
So you might not be the solution.
Right, we are not, and Building Hope really is very, very thoughtful about not recreating any programs that already exist. So we don't employ therapists directly. We don't provide direct services to the community members of therapy. We provide financial assistance for people to access therapy in the community with the providers out there. So Building Hope plays a different role. We're not the actual service provider.
Okay.
We're more of the system expert of what's needed, what do we need to bring, how do we need to make those connections and facilitate the conversations so that the funding can then be accessed or supported.
Yeah.
And if I can answer, so in 23, Strong Futures brought in about $10 million. And about 3.3 of that went to behavioral health.
In 2023.
Yes,
You said 10 million.
10 million.
Where did you get that so I can see it?
Yeah,
I'll take those numbers.
Some
And how do you
it's
fill
a
out?
it's a county. It's not, yeah, it's pretty old. It's the county's website. So
Okay, and on our website, so we're trying to update with a little bit better than just the 2023 data. So on our website, you can see more about the different programs that are funded through the behavioral health dollars. And then we've also gotten information from the other sectors, water, fire, recycling, early childhood, to put on our website so that it does show that there's other buckets of funding and buckets of areas that are funded through Strong Future that are not just mental health.
So smart, yeah.
Sure.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you. So I have a comment, then a question. I think that when you're talking about the suicides being, I believe you said 7 this year already, right? It might sound, dare I say, silly, but I wonder if you look at the impacts of snow, right? Like this year was a record-breaking year in the wrong way, right? And what does that mean, right? It means that you can't necessarily enjoy what you're enjoying as a person out here. So you might have moved out here spending a lot of money, living paycheck to paycheck, right? But then also, right, a lot of our employees live paycheck to paycheck and are hourly, so might not have 40 hours at work and things like that. So I wonder if that's part of when you're doing your research that the amount of snow we get can lead to more suicides. And that's a crazy to think correlation, but could be.
No, I think the concept is spot on because Carla will talk a little bit more. There's seen an increase in folks who need food and everything, all of your services and all of your needs are affected when you don't have work, right? And a lot of our community relies on that work. We've also seen an increase in domestic violence this year, and just overall kind of stress and malfunction. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that our community functions.
Yeah. So my question was going to be tied to the mental health scholarship that you talked about. Do you have any additional metrics besides race and sex about
Yes.
who gets seen? Is it seasonal workforce? Is it, full-time employees?
Yeah, so that I'm trying to think if we asked that question. I don't think that we asked necessarily if they're seasonal or full-time. I can double check for sure on that
The
question.
pointed reason I'm getting at, right, is Vail Resorts, you get, I believe it's six sessions. And that also extends your roommates, right?
Yeah.
Family, right?
Yeah.
But does that scholarship need increase during the summer when there are less Vail Resorts employees? is part of the question there. I wonder more demographically who uses instructorships, but not the council.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. So the Vail Resorts EAPD, the 6 sessions that they come from, that they cover are separate than the scholarship. So technically somebody could access 6 sessions and then come and get off scholarship and 12 more. So I know that there are folks who do that. And hopefully Vail Resorts also, they do 6 sessions for each incident that you have. So you could access more than 6 in a year based on what it is that's happening for you.
Okay.
But yeah, we work with a lot of resources and towns and county and to various employers to try to make sure that they have insurance benefits that meet their employees' needs. And if they don't, we have certain employers that will pay for the sessions at Building Hope that their employees cover. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Other questions?
One quick question. Thank you. I think you mentioned some numbers of the number of therapists in Summit County. Do you have any notice of therapists that are within town of Keystone?
I will look. I can certainly get that information. Yeah. I don't know how many are physically located in Keystone.
There's a lot of telehealth and like that. So I know that we share the resources, but I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's
And thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you.
for being here. Addiction.
Kelly,
From-
can we email you for the presentation for, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just email me that email.
What's-
It was just right at work.
Sorry, what is it, GAT?
GADEL, over Gabble at Keystone CO. GADEL. GADEL. I can reply to your email again. Gabble.
Oh, there we go. It was not.
It's just like another.
Sorry?
It's just sent you another email.
It's in the packet too, the packet.
Yeah, people.
I think I sent it to you, did it? Oh.
It's this one. Can I share it?
Yeah. But I can grab it from the confidential, I just kind of register what was happening.
Sorry, here we go.
You go onto the,
I can grab it.
Okay, it's coming to you.
Okay. It's the one in the packet that.
Mhm.
Do you feel afraid in your own home? Last time I was there, I starts through the watch and I said, are you aware that house built in this incredibly long document you have? He didn't. She said, oh, my gosh, I'm down in the car. Why is he so right? It doesn't matter which one. Your share. And your share. And click the presentation.
I'm sorry. And there we go.
Thank you. Sorry for those last minute switch ups.
Oh, boy.
No, you're all good, thanks. So thanks everyone and welcome. Thanks for having me. My name is Carla Tucker and I'm with the FERC. And as someone pointed out earlier, the FERC stands for Family and Intercultural Resource Center, but most locals do commonly know it as the FERC. We have been in Summit County for about 33 years, so we're a pretty well-known institution. We serve about 10,000 community members annually, so that's an impact of about a third of our population. And we have a pretty small but mighty team. That's the whole crew there, some board members, even some contractors. And so, and this photo is a little bit old. It was taken outside of our old Silverthorne location, which is now owned by occupied by the Silverthorne Police Department. So we are no longer there anymore because we're in our big brand new building, the Soul Center in Breckenridge. So we're so thankful to be there. Our services were spread out all over the county. We had at one point a location on Airport Road, one on Lincoln and Maine. We had a thrift store in Dillon. We had our office in Silverthorne. We even had a couple other locations that we were working out of. So we were really inefficient and we had a lot of services happening out of a lot of different buildings. And when a client would come in for services, let's say for rental assistance, but then they also needed food assistance, we would be like, okay, well, we can only take care of rental assistance here. So you've got to go all the way across the county to our other location to get your food, your box of food. And so being at the Soul Center has been a huge blessing for us because when a client walks in our doors needing assistance for one thing, we're able to provide that wraparound support and services and get them connected to everything else that they may need. And if we don't offer those services, we'll find a partner or another resource in the county that can take care of you. And so that's what really our approach is this whole person-centered approach. Go to the next slide. This is just simply our mission, which a lot of people are confused about. It's opening doors and unleashing our community's potential. The reason that is our mission is because we believe that our community members have the skills and ability to take care of themselves and their families. We all get a little lost, we need a little help sometimes, and so what we're really just doing is helping people achieve their full potential. And what we envision for our community is a diverse and thriving community. We have 5 core values and we call them the 5 C's. We talk about them a lot. We incorporate them into staff meetings. We really try to use the 5 C's to build a sense of community and culture. And so it's something that we don't just have written down on paper, that we don't actually practice within our walls. We really do value collaboration, cultural diversity, community contribution, and curiosity. Curiosity being our #1 value, really even instilling it among coworkers, right? Did you come up that situation with curiosity today? So it's really important to us. You can go to the next slide. This is just a little bit about who we are. I love this slide mostly because the woman in this picture is Alicia, and she's been working at it for 27 years. And she started at her thrift store, and she's still working at her food markets today. And she kind of embodies what FERC represents, right? Just like a loving, caring person who's committed to our community. And so many people know her and have worked with her, and she's provided service to over the years. And so it's just, I love this slide because Alicia reminds me of like what the core of her employees are. Go to the next slide. Some current pressures, and this is not going to be an entirely negative, presentation, but I think we need to acknowledge a little bit of the landscape that we're trying to navigate today here in Summit County. If any of you have walked into the grocery store lately and looked at the price tag at the register while you're checking out, and started realizing that your grocery bill is a lot higher than it used to be. All I hear about these days is people shopping at City Market on Fridays now because they have the 4 times the fuel points, and that's all they care about is getting extra fuel points so they can save money on gas because their grocery prices are high. And so we are really feeling the hurt of these decreased funding opportunities, like at the state and federal level. And so we're really relying more and more on local donors, foundations, and other funding sources such as Strong Future that do not come from state and local funding sources. As was mentioned earlier, lots of people have had reduced hours and lack of work this season. People have been really hurt. We're seeing a lot of people come through our doors needing rental assistance, and not just needing a one-time emergency rental assistance, but needing ongoing rental assistance or mortgage assistance because they just can't afford to pay their rent and there's nowhere to work right now. And so people have drained their savings and they don't know what to do. And one of the number 1 things that we're trying to help people with is food assistance, because that's our most cost-effective program. We'll get a little bit more into that later. SNAP and Medicaid used to be a huge help for people, but with the new rollouts and changes, people are really afraid to apply. And a lot of people just aren't qualified anymore. And so those changes have really, those pressures get put back on local community partners such as ourselves to try and fill those gaps for community members that were previously accessing benefits elsewhere and no longer able to.
Trying, sorry.
No, you're good.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, of course. So, why does community support matter? For all of the reasons and all of the things. I mean, FERC provides a variety of resources that touch on all of these basic needs and social determinants of health. And when one person has something happen in their life that is perhaps a mental health crisis or losing their health insurance or not able to put the same amount of food or the food that they want and desire on their table, a lot of their world kind of crumbles. And that's where FERC becomes the support system for these families to ensure that they can get through the next few days and remain in this community and be a part of our workforce and get back to being that contributing community member that they were before. The next slide is a little bit about our programs. We have a ton of programs and offer all kinds of assistance and support, but our 4 core areas are the peer community, meaning peer support, and light mental health kind of assistance. We don't duplicate services in the county, so we don't do what Building Hope does, but we refer to them, and we have some complementary programs that work really well together. And so we also, underneath this peer community, falls our parenting program, where we have a home visitation parenting program that's really beneficial for parents that are in their early stages of parenthood with children ages 0 to 3 years old, to really kind of navigate them through how do you get your kids signed up for preschool, how do you all that working on developmental and cognitive development as well. We have a community health program that focuses on getting people connected to health insurance, public benefits, and we also provide some medical assistance and help folks navigate complex medical bills. We have a financial empowerment program, which is enrolling people in case management and providing housing scholarships. And emergency rental assistance, utility assistance. And then we also have like an odds and ends type of assistance program. For example, let's say someone couldn't afford to put snow tires on their car, we might help them with that. Or if they have a broken window, we might help with that. So it's a kind of like a catch-all sort of generic fund that we can help people with sort of odds and ends that they're struggling with, but our emergency resources. And then our largest program, of course, is our food markets. We have 2 food markets in the county. We have one in Dillon, which is located in our old thrift store. And then we have another one at our new building, the Soul Center in Breckenridge. We serve about 300 families or households a day, operating 3 days a week. And folks can place an order online. It's like shopping via Instacart. So they need to be signed up for an account. They are encouraged to shop once a week. They place their order online, and then they pick an appointment day and time where they would like to pick up their food box. And so by the time they're coming to get their box, it's in and out under 2 minutes, unless they want to have a conversation with the staff person about some other things or referrals that they might be looking for. And so it's a really great program. We are at 90% fresh food market. So we order produce, meats, grains, dairy, you name it, and people can get about up to $225 worth of food each visit. So it's a great program. You can use it every single week. You can save up to almost $900, and then you can put that $900 towards your rent, or your medical bills, or whatever else you start with. Let's take a gas in your car. So it's really a cost-effective way to support our community without breaking the bank. We spend about between $12,000 and $15,000 weekly on food to serve that many people in our community. And then finally, the most exciting little bullet point down there at the bottom is the thrift store, which is the biggest question I get about what is going on with the thrift store. Is the thrift store coming back? Is the thrift store going to reopen? Yes, it is. We have a whole beautiful retail space on our bottom floor of the Soul Center. It's amazing. If you want to come check it out, please contact me. I'd love to give you a tour of the entire facility. And it's going to be opening here at the end of May. So we're very excited for the thrift store to come back. It's going to be a pretty specific thrift store. It's going to be focused mostly on clothing, shoes, and accessories, because we really believe that we want to have an affordable place for our community members to access affordable clothing. A lot of the thrift stores that we have in our community now are more consignment shop side of things and have a little bit higher prices, a little bit nicer goods, but we really want to make sure that we offer this service to our community where they can come in and get a t-shirt for $5 and a pair of jeans for $5 and really feel like that was affordable and accessible to them to access what they need for their family. So it's really going to look like a true retail space. And we hope that when you walk inside, you feel like you're at a store, not just your grandma's attic or basement. And so we really hope that it comes out in a way that feels really supportive and beneficial to our community members. Next slide. This next slide here is talking a little bit about what our community members are going through. Most of our community members earn more than the federal poverty level, meaning they can't access public benefits such as Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, WIC, you name it, but they don't earn enough to afford the basics where they live. And so this is a study conducted by I can't remember the name of the organization right now, so I apologize. But they're based out of Denver, and this study is called ALICE, which is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Yet Employed. So what we're trying to describe here with this slide is that a lot of Summit County residents are working, but they still really struggle to meet all of their basic needs. Again, this is just a slide talking about our impact in 2025. So we serve about 8,000 community members, which is about a third of our total population, through 38,000 touch points for service deliveries, meaning that you came in and a need was met. So you had an appointment, you maybe got navigation, you maybe got a box of food, you maybe talked with a staff person for an hour and got a resource referral. So 38,000 touch points in 1 year. So we think that's pretty impactful. And then this is just a little chart about the food market and the impact that it has. The amount of food that was distributed through our food markets last year was valued at $7.1 million. last year. So we put $7.1 million worth of food back in the community members' hands. This chart kind of shows the trend of the pre-pandemic of how many services we were providing compared to now. And this 2026 bullet point is just a forecast, just an estimate. But we think that it's going to far exceed our estimate because we've already seen increased numbers at the food market because of the low snow here and lack of work for folks. This is a cute picture of our equity coalition. It was originally called the Food Equity Coalition, but now it encompasses more than just food because we all know that food and housing and all these other issues are intertwined. And so our equity coalition is made up of people that have lived experience of housing instability and food insecurity, and they really guide the work that we do. They tell us what the issues are that they see and are experiencing. They tell us, you know, what proposed solutions could be. They work with us to figure out how we can fix a broken system and what we can do better. And we really try to focus on that low hanging fruit and not try to get too worldly with our solutions. Like, what can we actually do in our community today or within the next few months that will make a difference and an impact. So this is a great group. They've been together for about 7 years. And they are kind of the core and represent everything that we do. We really like to be guided by community and not just say, oh, we know what the answer is, and tell you what it is. But we want to know what their thoughts and opinions are to guide our work. Something cool that just was, that's just come to fruition over the last year and a half or so is that FERC applied for a grant through the Colorado Health Foundation, and we received it. And it is all about figuring out and working in strategic partnerships on how we can figure out a better food system at a very high level. So where the Equity Coalition was kind of that boots on the ground, everyday issues and topics, this is more of that high level, big picture work. We are partnering with Smart Bellies, Cafe Food Rescue, and the Senior Center, because they run the Meals on Wheels program, which is actually one of our largest assistance programs in the county. And we were sort of convened by the Summit Foundation. And we also have a couple members of the Food Equity Coalition that sit on this board, so that, again, we still have that community voice that guides and informs us. And this Food Access Advisory Board, or the FAB, we call ourselves because we're fabulous. The FAB really is coming up with like a food sustainability plan for the next 3 to 5 years on how these partner organizations can work better together. Is there technology that we can utilize that can do things smarter and faster for us? Is there a potential way we could share a volunteer database? Are there vans and transportation that we could share that would work for all of our organizations? So we're really looking at this. How do we create efficiencies? How do we work better, stronger, harder, you know, and really focusing on what the impact will be for the community in that 3 to 5 strategic lens, not just today or tomorrow. How can we help? We need lots of volunteers. We always need volunteers, especially now that we're trying to get the thrift store up and running. So it's a really fun time to go work over there, price clothes and hang clothes and decorate. So if you would be interested in volunteering or sharing with your neighbors that we have lots of volunteer opportunities, we'd appreciate it. It's really easy to sign up. You can just go to our website, click volunteer, and pick what slots or days you want or things that you want to do. Just staying engaged, just me being here today is a huge deal because we really need your support, especially when we're talking about the Strong Future initiative that's coming up this year. We would really encourage you all to vote yes for Strong Future. It's a huge impact in our community. FERC is a recipient of some of the dollars that are passed through from Building Home. So it's a big deal for us as well. And just know that by supporting FERC, you're lifting up the voices of local working families. There's a lot of working families here in the community that feel unseen and unheard. And a lot of the work that we're trying to do is elevate those voices so that other folks understand the struggles that they go through and how hard it is truly for families to live in Summit County. So, yeah, and that's all that I have. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, questions.
Sure.
How much funding do you get from teachers?
It's a little, I believe, I'd have to double check on that number. I don't have the data right in front of me, but I don't think it's more than 100,000. We get a grant that comes directly from the county, but it's from that behavioral health bucket. And it goes to fund our ALMA program, which is a peer support program for Spanish speaking women. And we also have a Spanish speaking peer support program for men called Acción. And that's really an interesting program because it gets men engaged in group activities and it gets them talking about mental health without them really knowing that they're talking about mental health. So I think it's a little bit under 100,000 total for those programs. But those programs are really impactful because there's not a lot of Spanish speaking services in the county, especially for mental health services. And so those programs can kind of break down the stigma of accessing a therapist because you're really talking to a peer. So really important programs.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Helen. So without having to put numbers on it, about what percentage of your funding do you think comes from Strong Futures in one way?
A very small percent. I mean, we're a $7.2 million annual budget for our entire organization, so it's not a lot.
Where's the budget
That
come
is
from?
surprising.
Where do the funding sources come from? A mix of all of the funding sources you can think of: state and federal grants, local grants, foundations, the Summit Foundation, the towns and the county,
When we
local
look at
donors,
building hope, there is the big chunk, right? What do you think are your top two?
grants, grant funding, grants and foundations. You could probably group in the same bucket because you have to still submit an application for a grant from the foundation. So grants and foundations, and probably local individual donors.
What about, how much do you think comes from state money, percentage wise?
Well, that would kind of be grouped in the grant bucket
Because
because,
that also includes the nonprofit, so.
right, I can get a chart together for y'all, a pie chart, so that you can see where the funding sources come from and break it down for you.
We love that, and it could be handy for you.
Yeah, I think we have it on another presentation slide somewhere, so I just need to pull it up and send it over.
Okay, so there's a kind of a principle where you say, oh, we need everyone, we have lots of needs, lots of volunteer needs. You're the one, everybody thinks, oh, she doesn't need me. What are you really critical of in the thrift shop volunteer needs?
Well, I mean, we can't really run our organization without volunteers. At any given hour in the food market, we have a minimum of 10 volunteers. And that's addition to our 7 staff members. So we really can't operate our food market without volunteers, period. We would have to close it down. The third store we would have never gotten if it would have taken us 6 months to get it open without volunteers. We only have 2 staff people working there right now. And so it just takes a village in order to operate these programs and provide these free services to the community. You can't do that if you have 17 staff members in the food market. Our cost to operate the food market would be so extraordinarily high, we wouldn't be able to purchase food. So volunteers are crucial. We wouldn't be able to run our programs without them, you know. And then we also just need word of mouth. The question that you asked, Calvin, was how do you market? How do you let the community know how to find you and what you do? A lot of the way that referrals and clients come to us is word of mouth. We do all the things that Building Hope does as well. A lot of social media, a lot of the free options that we can find. The newspaper and radio are expensive here, and they don't give us that much of a discount for being a nonprofit. And so we really try to utilize the free calendar in the Summit Daily. We really try to make sure that we work with our community partners. We have a ton of community partners, and we'll go and we'll do presentations like this describing our services, how people can best refer to us, how people can reach out to us. We get a lot of referrals from community partners. And then mostly word of mouth. So people are just coming through the door because they talk to their neighbor, hey, where'd you get that fast food? What? It's free? All I have to do is order it online. I don't have to be embarrassed and stand in line for an hour? No. So we get a lot of referrals through community partners and word of mouth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So we talked about, thank you. You talked about the food system and the rec and Dillon location for the food marts. Is there any plan to reduce or remove the Dillon location and consolidate it to one location?
That's a great question. Before we built the Soul Center, we did a community needs assessment to see if people would be able to just access food solely from the Breckenridge location. And overwhelmingly, the response was we could, because a lot of people, even if they live on the north side of the county, work in Breckenridge. So there's a lot of commuting back and forth. However, we also asked the community if they would always like to see some sort of a food service on the north side of the county, and overwhelmingly that response was yes. We do not want to have that large of a food market anymore in Dillon. It takes a lot of effort to move all of the food over there. It takes a lot of effort to operate out of 2 different locations. It's a lot of back and forth. And so when we sold our Silverthorne office location to the town of Silverthorne, they promised us a 1,500 square foot remote satellite food market after they demolish that building and build a new facility over there. That won't be for at least 5 years or more until they start that project. So I think the plan is to keep the Dillon location operating until we are able to, start conversations with the town of Silverthorne about what a satellite food market would look like. And when I say satellite food market, we're talking about a state-of-the-art facility that wouldn't have to be staffed. We're talking refrigerated lockers like Amazon, where you just scan your QR code, you go and pick your box of food. So we're hoping to get to that point, so that way we truly are solely based out of the Soul Center, but it's not going to be it's going to be a long time until we get there.
Is there the possibility to put that state-of-the-art facility in targeted locations, say an employee housing area or a community that has a high usage of this?
We're somewhat doing that already by partnering with Cafe Food Rescue. And if you're not familiar with them, what they kind of do as a nonprofit is coordinate rescuing food from different stores, and not just grocery stores. Some of the strangest places that you wouldn't imagine, like 7-Eleven and 9 Cents Bagels and Dunkin' Donuts and Target donates a lot of food to us. And so they pick up all that food, and they even have licensed now to repackage food out of the building that they're using. So they go to the Keystone Conference Center all the time, and they save all of the fade food, keep it at the right temperature, and package meals ready to eat. And they have a couple of distribution sites. One is at CNC, and one is in Elevated Health. And so we work in partnership with them to get fridges there and to get those fridges stocked. So when students and patients are visiting, they can grab all of the rescued food and the meals that they need at satellite locations. And so we're working on expanding that. We're talking with Kendra Carpenter, the principal at Dillon Valley Elementary School right now, to see if that would be beneficial for them to have. So those kinds of conversations are happening in that FAB group at a really high level.
And you sounded very tech-enabled process to get these boxes, right? Do you have demographic information where like person 123 lives at address 123?
100%. Every single person that accesses the food market has to complete an intake form. The intake form takes approximately 7 minutes to answer because it asks a lot of basic information, demographic information, and it also includes a common screener. Kind of what Helen was talking about before. And so we have demographic information on all of our shoppers, and we ask that they recomplete an intake form every single year, because we know family dynamics change here. So much people move, families sizes can change, people might not have a roommate, they might get married. So we request that they complete an intake form every single year. The 2 issues that we have with the intake form that we just cannot seem to resolve is that people never put the right address. People are very confused about what their address is. They don't know if they should put their physical address or their mailing address, or the address that's their mom's house, not their room. So address is a complete nightmare. We have been talking about if in a crisis like a wildfire or an ice raid, could we deliver boxes of food to our shoppers? We would not know where the heck to go, because the addresses are so wacky around here that I think that it would be quite a nightmare. So, and the other thing is that people always have to report their income. We ask, what's your annual income? People don't know what their annual income is, because they have so many jobs and they start and they stop, and they don't have any consistency, and so they don't know what their income is. And so those are the 2 key issues that we see with our intake form over and over and over again. But all of the other information, I can pull reports. We use Salesforce as our database to pull up our information. So we can pull really sophisticated reports on all sorts of different targeted programs and demographics, whatever you would need. You could ask me and I could pull a report in 5 minutes and let you know.
So it's ironic you say that because my follow-up question was going to be, can you pull a report based on addresses for the Keystone area to see like how many people?
Yes, I can.
But there's that issue with the.
But we would never know if like, well, actually Keystone might be a little bit more accurate than most places because if you live in Keystone, you don't have a PO box here. So, well, your PO box could be anywhere. So I think like if we're asking for physical location and somebody wrote Keystone, I think we could maybe get a little bit more. I think I would trust that data a little bit more. What I'm saying.
Well, except that the people who have PO boxes are all going to be categorized as Dillon or somewhere else.
That's what I was. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If they had, if there was a Keystone address attached to that person, there's a high probability that they actually do live in Keystone.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
It'd be interesting if you are able in 5 minutes to pull that report and send to Ken John, all of us.
Absolutely.
Percentage of John.
Yeah. And dare I say, not only a Keystone technical address, but maybe all of some areas that are right adjacent to the town limits that might.
Just say it's just say.
Well, I consider Winterbury.
Yeah.
Pop up. You can't just look at cities on the address. You actually have to look at the street because on a lot of our addresses, in Keystone, people still say Dillon, even though.
Yeah, we have a lot of people say that they live in Silver Farm, but they live in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a common issue in our
Well, thank you very much.
You're so very welcome. Thank you very much for having us.
Did you have one more?
Thank you for being.
And if you do want to come to the Soul Center, please do reach out to me. I'd be happy to take the tour. It's really cool to see. I can get you one.
I'll send out.
You can send out my contact info. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
See you soon. Take care.
John, is the chief going to be here?
No, he's not, but I'm going to
All right,
talk about his report.
all right.
Now, just a second, we write a note. Well, this was supposed to be a presentation by Chief and our community service, sir. The one we just hired. The reason Chief is not here is because our community service officer, Corey Palmer, long time local, worked in the sheriff's department and the jail. So incredibly rapidly was consumed by cancer over the last literally week and a half. He died Sunday, I believe, maybe yesterday. Chief is with his family right now, so that's why Chief is not here. It's pretty tragic. Will be missed. Will desperately be missed. So that's where we sit on our community service officer. We can go through the police report, and I'd like to point out something on page 1 here. Talking about mistaken addresses. Here's where autocorrect gets you. This is arrest by location, 738 West Avenue Trail is Antlers Gulch. It's not Dillon. It's not in Menominee Trail, Dillon. It's Antlers Gulch.
Here's two.
No, there's one. But it's when this report was put together, Sergeant who was putting this together probably typed in A and Menominee Trail popped up from the years of that popping up as Dillon issues. So these are, Anemone Trail is not going crazy. It is, it's golf, this is winter green.
Yeah, what about Little Beaver,
Which is in Dillon.
which is
Little Beaver is in Durham.
Yes. And the ranch is in the resort. So why are you tracking it that way? By means of a resort.
what do you mean by
This
that?
really created more questions in my mind. If you have the opportunity, John, to go back and say that a little more fidelity would help us understand our shared challenges, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and this was the first report.
I understand that, and I think, I think it's
And
a step,
the
and
idea
I'm
was,
accustomed to treating it all, so this is a step
yeah,
forward.
and the idea was to get feedback on what we need to do, what they need to do better on this report. I'll start out with one thing Chief Wood said. We've done our reconciliation that was called for by the AGA for funding the combined Keystone Police Department.
Is why they got this going?
Right.
Is that linked to this report?
No,
Okay.
but it's linked to our IGA and operations. It was an estimated expense share. Keystone's share was an estimated expense. We are actually around 160,000 less in our expenses for last year than was estimated and paid for by the town.
So we
Say that again.
less.
Yeah, so we have $160,000 credit.
Okay.
Oh,
To what extent, I'm sorry, I can't recall these discussions, but to what extent is our cut, so to speak, of the expenses tied to calls?
That will be determined in a couple of years after we have good data.
Okay, because I would hate to have these on this,
Yeah,
because
no,
there's too many factors.
no, at this point, it will be, we're tied into the third of the cost for the first several years of the IGA,
Okay.
and then we'll be going back.
Okay, that's fair.
Curious, at several points, the breakdown is Highway 6 corridor, Keystone side. I'm curious where they consider that to start.
right.
Because they also have Swan Mountain as part of Keystone zone.
So I'm trying to see where.
Second page.
Okay.
Second page, number 4, traffic stops.
Geographical breakdown of incidents, traffic stops, it's mentioned more than once.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I did not expect to be giving this report.
Yeah.
I expected Chief to be here. We had a catastrophe in the police department, so he's dealing with that. Maybe here at our next meeting.
My suggestion, because he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet about this area.
Yeah.
So at least for the first one or two, it'd be good to go through these before we present. So, because you know these things, what's missing, what's not.
Yeah, and we expected to yesterday, but we didn't have internet and we added up that he was dealing with, so,
That's a bigger, kind of broader question.
yeah.
Because when I spoke with him, I was wondering what happens between that area between here and Dillon? Because they typically are the first call because of the closest. So, but that's a big area, where you live. Yeah, noise complaints from your house in particular. But where are those captured? Are they captured? Because that could be fairly significant.
Those are captured as,
Are they captured? I guess I didn't know how big of a.
area of control would be my guess.
Where's that, sorry?
That would be incidents by call type. And once again, I did not expect to.
So you're open to us sending you some suggestions or
Absolutely,
questions about how to
absolutely.
make this more useful?
Yes.
Are we hoping to see this report like on an every other month basis?
On a
quarterly?
monthly
Oh, okay.
basis. The big
calls for service, the last couple pages are based on, well, backup would be what it was from the Summit County 911 Center. 4.5% of Dillon police calls are calls for backup. So would that be backup in like where you live?
You mean Dillon Keystone Police are asking for?
No, they're called to serve as backup or even primary responders to a Summit County Sheriff jurisdictional situation. Like you said, we're the first ones there. Still, once the sheriff gets there, it's the sheriff's. And the question that I'm asking is that how big an impact is that on our police force? And are we getting money back from the sheriff and not covering that cost? Or do we just eat it? No. It's kind of a policy question. We eat it
And so with the sheriff, they were supporting us.
which they do.
Yes.
And part of, the chief mentioned at one point, part of the reason why Dylan is so beneficial to join forces with us is because they were the ones responding here 90% of the time, not really 90%, don't quote me, but a majority of the time anyways. So they might as well get some financial support if they're doing it.
Yeah, I find the 4.5% probably extremely low.
Yeah.
I suspect it's higher. I'd like to see the breakout of wintergreen, Summit County wintergreen versus our wintergreen. I think there's a fair number of calls that are probably in there that are, and it's by building, unfortunately, which makes it very difficult for them.
I have to imagine though, Ken, that like, especially with the amount of money that the Summit County Emergency Center is increasing this year, that there is a geolocation, right? Like maybe even coordinates associated with the stop or like coordinates associated with the call.
He's so glad you asked.
This is a $10 million night
Oh, jeez.
that we are desperately trying to work through.
Okay.
The first issue was getting our own CBI code or state code
Yeah,
for
But they're
Keystone, but
they're
then
redoing the communication center. The counties.
Yeah.
They've also redone who's responsible for the communication center the last year and a half, 2 years with their disputes with the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
And there are just all sorts of issues with the contracting, the performance when this is going to be up and running.
And is that related to that dream I just said of having a location for polls?
Okay.
How so? And I don't know.
Well, that's what the $10 million.
Geolocation.
Well, that's what it's being used for, to update the geolocation and communications equipment.
So more than just the geolocated. The whole
Big
system.
hump
It's a
is
big
the
system.
geolocation system.
And the county is.
And there's contractual problems. And the towns are all stepping in now. We are meeting in the next week specifically on this issue. So, yeah, it's become a brand new problem that we didn't anticipate.
I claim total ignorance on the upcoming issue that you just brought to our attention. But I am aware that there's definitely every single call that goes in has a geolocation. It has GPS coordinates.
Except for the dumb phones, right?
Yeah.
No, because they'll still put an address.
Yeah, but what if I told you my address is 1080 Independence Lane in Washington, D.C.?
So are you talking like a landline?
No, like I have a Nokia phone with bricks. An old Nokia phone that's not smart, a flip phone.
You'd have to have a truly ancient phone to not have it GPS full.
Okay.
Yeah, they phase two, they pull coordinates on basically every call.
But the problem is, so someone at unit 7A in Gateway calls in, and we get a geolocation code for the response out to Gateway. That's not a real address.
Yes.
So when it's entered into the system,
the system is having I am far from the IT guy who can explain why the system is failing at that point to generate the proper reports and stuff. Police are still good, ambulance is still going to get to the right spot, because it's a pin drop.
It's technically possible to analyze such data. It's sad to hear that perhaps they don't have the ability to do that. Because I would certainly be interested in knowing in these traffic stops, what are the traffic stops that are basically east of the Swan Mountain intersection, as opposed to traffic stops that might have been on Swan Mountain Road or 6 West.
It's east and west mostly, and I don't know if they break it down, but I would guess they would break it down by which direction they're going, would be my guess. And that's a guess.
But I would expect our police department, since their jurisdiction is really, for traffic stops, is our town limits. They really don't have that much jurisdiction of traffic stops outside of our limits.
But they absolutely do. What happens when you clock someone at 60 miles an hour in front of Wintergreen? And by the time they're pulled over, they're.
Oh, but the stop is based on the Wintergreen address, not the pullover.
But the question I think is more like, they're talking about the majority of their proactive stops, they're saying are on the Highway 6 corridor, Keystone side. Does that mean west of Corinthian or east of Corinthian Hills, or does that mean east of Swan Mountain Road, east of the cemetery? That's what I'm wondering. It's like, are these proactive stops happening in that?
That's why Chief will be here next meeting.
Yeah, first, when the sheriff gave us reports, he gave us reports of
In the town.
in the town of Keystone, the number of traffic stops. And that's what I'm particularly interested in, of understanding what's the number of traffic stops, what's the nature of those traffic stops. It'd be interesting also, and I believe those traffic stops are also indicated by mile markers of where they occurred. Yeah. So are they, as they're leaving Keystone, is that they're entering Keystone as center? But the first thing is, what do we have in Keystone?
A question. First, I want to say, I love this. I mean, we're going to get some.
Yeah.
Now, I think there are a lot of, as everybody's pointed out, issues that need to be corrected. And then there are ideas that we would also like. So what would you, what's the right process you'd like us to?
Well, the process was going to be
Tell him.
Chief here explaining the situation, so we have an understanding of, is this a process that's wrong or not? It could be that they just consider everything down that side of the stoplight, the Swan Mountain section, everything this side of the fire department, the Montezuma Road section. I don't know.
Well, I heard each, but everybody came up with, what I don't know is this, or what,
Yeah,
so we need to kind of consolidate that.
and the process truly is to have Chief here who can explain what these points mean in the report, and then we can clearly identify where the flaws are, where we need to, even if it's not a flaw, where it needs to be tightened up, where we need more detail.
At a minimum, before you come back next time, we probably should share some of these thinking. Absolutely not. We don't go through this.
And as I said, yesterday was going to be, we got this report from them Friday.
And if this gets cleaned up, that's great.
Yeah, and my intention was to talk to them yesterday about details of the report, but between what happened to our officer and complete communications infrastructure right down here, it just didn't.
Along with that, is there immediate funeral service?
I don't know. He, like I said, he's meeting with the family right now. They had a brief, as they transported the body for transport down to the front range for an autopsy. They, law enforcement and fire had a brief ceremony, but I don't know what.
I would just request if you hear something.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yes, absolutely.
And as a town, yourself.
Well, personally, this will show up.
I mean, it was so quick, literally last week, the Dillon Town Manager, the chief and I were talking about how we can support him as he goes through this. He just started, so didn't have any accumulated PTO. We both said, you know, that's okay, we'll use PTO, let him bank it. Understanding there could be a very good chance that we wouldn't see return on that bank, and that it turns out it. Yeah, okay.
One of the areas that I would like to see improvement on with this is that I think the point about the geolocation, right? Like what you described as our current ability, like the gateway building being where the pin is, that's completely fine. I don't need to know like unit 1, 2, 3, right? I think it's just generally, I would like to see an idea of like what's in our town limits, right? And as Ken mentioned, what's in the buildings that are directly adjacent to our town that people think are in our town that aren't necessarily in our town, but we still cover, right? And not only Wintergreen, right? I'm talking about the golf course, talking about Mountain House. And that would be helpful for me, I think. And just the accuracy, and we already talked about the minor details, but like the accuracy and the coding of some of these would be nice too. So, but I do agree with Dan and everyone else that said it, that the detail here is great.
I'd be interested in, instead of just saying, we have 80 manufacturing shops. Here's what they were for, or here's the breakout of what those were. That's very
Which is what
similar.
the sheriff's office.
The sheriff's office provided a database. base.
And unless I'm missing it, the correlation with the number of people that are in town, I don't know if that's even something that they would have data or we would have to share data about. Just because it really looks interesting to see which months for their benefit and ours, which months are very high in
Christy, might I ask, may I add a suggestion for that? Instead of the number of people, maybe like large events that they've responded to or
Sure.
provided services, right?
Sure.
In August, did they do 3 festivals?
Just trying to, yeah, like everyone here, just trying to sink into this data because it's exciting.
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing you can kind of see in the two last couple pages, where we have year-to-date, and then we have last year's. I think you notice how we have January, February, March, much higher level in year-to-date this year compared to last year, and I think that reflects the difference between, and last year you see the August, October numbers really up high. I think that represents more issues in Dillon, and the winter numbers represent more issues up here.
I think what you're seeing is in 2025, wasn't the IGA effective at the start of the year? I mean,
Yeah.
mid-year, so it was about June that the IGA started, so the calls before were predominantly Dillon. Now you have calls of Dillon.
That's a good point. I didn't recognize that.
That's why I jumped.
So as I said, I am completely unprepared to present this report to you guys and explain it. I do want to show that they are working on it. They are getting things here. And the idea was this would be feedback for chief to get these correct.
Do you think you got some good feedback from, I think, every single one of us?
I absolutely. And
Thank you for the preview.
yeah,
Oh, well, I know we're excited. I mean, this is great. Yes, correct. Probably still have suggestions, yeah, but it's a great start.
It's a good start. Anything else on the reporting? All right, let's move on then to E-Mountain Bike presentation. I'm sure we're going to town manager.
and I am going to let our town planner, Jessica Ertzberg, and one of our council members, Councilmember Parmet, explain this.
So in the October Trails and Open Space Advisory Board meeting, representatives from the Summit County Mountain Bike Alliance, SCOMBA, presented to the board members and requested support from them and town council regarding the use of Class 1 mountain bikes on trails that already allow non-motorized bicycles. They gave the presentation that is in your packet, and the members of Trails and Open Space had some discussion about this and decided to submit a letter to town council with their recommendation. That letter is also in your packet. Councilmember Permet is the representative that sits on this board and can share more about this. And at the time, Councilmember Camp was also on the Trails and Open Space Advisory Board. And so I'm sure both of them can share more about the impetus for this and also the details of the discussion that was had.
Who drafted the letter?
That was drafted by a member of the Trails and Open Space Advisory Board based on recommendations from the discussion.
Questions? I frankly found the letter incomprehensible. I don't know if anyone else did. What trails in the town of Keystone, which are largely non-asphalt trails, where are they looking for us to open to e-bikes?
Allow me to offer some clarity here. So the ask from Strongbow was to all the municipalities in the area to generally support the opening of natural surface trails that are usable by mountain bikes currently to type 1 mountain bikes as a letter of support to the Forest Service so that they would be able to gauge the opinions of those municipalities that border the lands that they manage. So it wasn't so specifically to ask us to change our own management because we're all aware that we currently have very few natural surface trails within the town boundary. It was to go to the Forest Service and say, hey, we as a community support you considering allowing this within the areas around us. The reason for that was they were hoping to encourage the Forest Service to look at a trial area in our area, and they wanted to
In
include
Keystone or in Summit County?
in Summit County. They were hoping to do it over in some of the areas around the cove, and they basically were looking for community buy-in before going to the Forest Service about this and wanted to see what our opinions were. They went to all the municipalities. And I did send some of the letters, but all of them, Frisco, Dillon, Silverthorne, all just sent letters to the Forest Service saying, hey, we are generally in favor of type 1 mountain bikes on natural surface trails on the lands you manage.
I'd be interested in seeing the letters because on the internet search, I've seen.
Very recent, very recent.
I apologize. I was bothering them for those letters for the last 2 weeks, and then they finally just sent us.
So have those letters been sent, or that's a draft? You sent us,
They have voted on those, is my understanding.
but may or may not have actually gone out.
Because from what I understand, Rutherford has made no decision on this whatsoever. Frisco has made no decision on this whatsoever. Silverthorne is in discussion with them, but no decision has been made to support e-bikes. And Dillon is in the same situation, and Dillon made no decision.
So the Frisco letter was dated 10 April, and it is indeed signed by Tom Fisher.
And the letter says they've had 7 years of experience with Class 1 on the peninsula.
So
I don't know detail what that means.
I can say in detail, the special use permit that Frisco Service operates on the Forest Service side on the peninsula allows Class 1 EMTBs on all of their natural surface trails.
On all the trails beyond just the regional trail, the paved trail that goes through.
Yeah, all dirt trails. They're allowed on all dirt trails on the peninsula. So they wrote the letter to the Forest Service saying, yeah, we have 7 years of experience. they suggested, please don't use the Frisco backyard project as your prototype project, but in general, we are in support of this. And they pointed to the findings of no significant impact in all of the analyses of type 1 EMTBs.
But there, Forest Service in the Dillon Ranger District, the Dillon Ranger District, the trails that they control, as I understand it, have not approved any e-bikes other than those areas that are already mobile.
That is correct. That's the purpose of these letters, is to express from the communities that there's general support for the Forest Service to do it. The Forest Service is going to have their entire own process where they'll review everything. And part of that is considering stakeholder input and community input. This is a piece of that input. They're still going to go through their entire environmental review process. Nothing that we send them circumvents any of their processes. This is merely expression of support, which Frisco and Dillon and Silverthorne at least have given. Breckenridge, I believe, basically said we had no opposition to this rather than specifically support it.
Could you give, and Councilmember Camp asking you for this as well, remove your personal perspective on this. What was the perspective that you felt the Trails and Open Space Advisory Board was on? Was it overwhelming yes? Was it somewhere in the middle, or was it hesitant?
From my perspective, it was that there was a majority of yes. However, there were some, outlying opinions that maybe this requires more of an evaluation. And the strongest push for it to go through as a recommendation was that it's etiquette that we're after. It's not after this bike versus this bike. And SCOMBA provides not just trail work, but instructional workshops about bike etiquette. So we were looking at the benefit of having SCOMBA participate with us as a town on our trails about etiquette.
So if I'm hearing you, it's not the impact of the bike, it's me going by you faster because I have an electric assisted bike.
It wasn't about speed. It was that it's about when you have trails that are shared, when you have people walking and people riding. That's where the conflict seemed to be more than what kind of bike you were on.
Well, then it doesn't matter if I'm on a
So SCOMBA itself was representing itself as we will be a large proponent for education on etiquette.
Was the Trails and Open Space Committee the primary emphasis on the unpaved trails, or was the primary emphasis on regional trail, and that was the bike where the bikes are currently off limits?
There was a little bit of confusion. I can defer, but it was just that they were not exactly defined of where they were already allowed and where they were not allowed. And so that's where the group kind of tried to come back, and maybe we don't have enough information. And that's where I felt like it fell short, just personally, that we didn't have a complete understanding as for which trails.
So I just want to, sorry, what I'm hearing you say is that the issue was not the bikes on the trail, right? Which this letter, as I read it, was not supporting or advocating for bikes on new trails. It's just the types of bikes that are on there.
Right.
And so it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the issue was not bikes on trail. Well, the issue is more bikes on trails and not the type of bikes. That's that etiquette of a biker and a walker. So for me, based on that alone, I mean, I struggle to say like I would not support this, because that's not the root cause. The root cause is not the bikes, or sorry, the root cause is not the type of bikes, it's the bike on the trail and the conflict that can arise from a shared trail.
So just to clarify, we did come back with the vote being that on all, please correct me if you heard it differently, on all the trails that did allow bikes already, that the electric bike would also be allowed. And that's pretty large.
That was more or less, I think it was a large learning experience. And while there were some folks who definitely were confused on the topic, I think we spent, an hour and a half or 2 hours on this.
We did.
And it was quite the extensive discussion. And there were folks who were confused, who had legitimate concerns about the paved bike path, which was not what was being discussed. E-mountain bikes are already allowed on the paved bike path. And I think that Christy nailed it, and you kind of hit on it too, when it came down to the issue was more the rider and not the vehicle. So it wasn't, shouldn't put bikes in new places. Is this slightly different type of bike to be allowed in places where other bikes are? And there's pretty strong guardrails around that. So a brief summary of like what e-mountain bikes are. A class 1 e-mountain bike, it doesn't have a throttle. The motor only works if you're pedaling. So it takes your pedaling force and it increases it. So it's a make things easier bike. It's not a scooter, it's not a motorcycle that's electric. There's no throttle and it's power limited. There's a maximum power it's allowed to put out, 750 watts. And it can only provide that power when you're pedaling. Thus, these bikes are not 100-pound behemoths. They're typically just a few pounds heavier than a normal 40-pound, 35-pound pedal bike. And most of the issues are, as you described, user group conflict wasn't whether the bike had a motor or not. It was, does that person know the etiquette, which is why, remembering your discussions back then, there was a lot of emphasis put on like, can we encourage education on this? Can we encourage signage? And that did make it into the letter. And because of that, while there were 2 folks who were fairly strongly opposed on that group of 17, it was a pretty significant majority who did vote in favor of it after the extended discussion. Hopefully that offers some clarity.
One comment I have is that I think a lot of the conflict that gets recognized on this is anger towards the bikers, right? And I'll say it bluntly like that. I have been a biker going down a one-way trail in Breckenridge that was only supposed to be for bikes, and there's been somebody walking their dog and I got clotheslined by the leash. So it does happen both ways, right? It just tends to be more that other way. And so I think, again, where after hearing some of this, my perspective is like, I would support this with the understanding and kind of on the base that this is more of a user group conflict issue, and that there should be effort being put into that education around like which user group goes first and like what trails are and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to tell like I'm an expert on that, but again, like I don't think we should, again, my perspective that we should limit this. I think we should support this, but again, be even aware of that conflict.
When you say support, you're talking about supporting opening our trails to e-bikes as well as some sort of support letter to council.
Yes.
Now, I'm still hung up on, all right, what trails are we really talking about? Are we talking trails like Granny's and Aqueduct Trail that go in and out of the Forest Service where it would be illegal to have those bikes?
No.
Are those in our
What is the
town
current
bounds?
policy?
Part of it.
Where we landed then was we will still define which trails have bikes only, which trails have bikes and pedestrians. And so we were not yet in that phase. This was like our second meeting. So we were looking at that will come when we are making the decision about who's on what trails.
And for clarity, I think that
The letter talks about opening the town's trails to e-bikes.
it's in the spirit of town trails which allow bikes.
No, that isn't what it said.
You wouldn't suddenly, I wouldn't, and I don't think it was the intent of the open space board to open trails that are not currently allowing bikes to e-bike.
No,
Could we potentially, I think that might be an error, right? I think that's an area that we can edit for sure.
Yeah, for
well, first of all, I
clarity.
wouldn't send this letter to anybody. This letter is, to me, unintelligible and confusing.
I'm still confused with the whole process. Sorry. I know you
It
guys
was
spent a couple
tough,
hours.
honestly. I felt like it was a tough thing and I wanted to throw in my heels just because it was, it was a lot of information and we hadn't yet defined the trails. So it was a little out of order, in my opinion. And so it still came strongly. There was a clear argument that there's a need for etiquette and education, and SCOMA provided support there.
Yeah, and I guess, going through this, I was thinking, well, I see what the trails and supposed to do, but we gotta focus on our stuff first. I mean, I guess I'm a little, well, I was confused about the whole thing. It's easy to confuse me, I guess. But I was, I'm not sure if this would open us up. We're putting the cart before the horse, as you say, to some of the trails we're talking about here. I know I have some behind my community that the neighbors are very nervous about bikes in particular, and then e-bikes specifically. It goes up around the.
And then that gets back to this education piece of, I don't think, and I thought Aaron was really describing that well, in that there's not the fear is a little misplaced with a misunderstanding of what e-bikes actually are.
And
So
I mean,
there's education.
Somebody my age, we need e-bikes. I'm gonna bike out here.
Both the presenters were in their 70s. So, yeah.
But
So in a few decades, Dan, you'll be.
right, yeah, that's. But back to the specifically an HOA that I was talking to. It's a trail that it's unclear right now if bikes can be on it at all, period. But bikes are out there. And then the question is, well, who's going to clear the logs that fall across? Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of.
You're talking about the Aldous Trail.
Yeah, those were.
Which was built by the HOA, but it's listed on the trails for the town. From what I, looking at the trails map, the Aldous Trail is one of them that's all within the town. And I believe the Settlers of Trail is all within the town. But all of the other towns, all of the other trails start in the town and rapidly go into the Forest Service property.
So I think that the current state, let me describe current state and correct me if I'm wrong, Jess. In the town of Keystone, there is no ordinance that allows or forbids e-bikes, except so much as on the paved bike path through our MOU with county. E-bikes are allowed there. And I think it's fairly clear here that this letter recommends the town council formally support the use of class 1 EMTBs on trails where traditional non-motorized mountain bikes are currently permitted. So if we have trails where that's a question mark, that's something for open space to work on clarifying. Like if bikes are a question mark in general, we would, and now e-bikes, well, no, that first question has to be answered before the second. But the general idea here is a statement of general support on natural surface trails to the Forest Service, as the other towns in our community have done.
I think that one thing I noticed with this, Aaron, and this is just feedback, I guess, for whoever wrote it, is that our letter is very technical and goes into a lot of details on things that, to be honest, I don't think are necessarily relevant.
It's a lot more detailed than the other letters.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at. Is the other letters are 1 page, 2 paragraphs, right? A question I have for, I guess, the group is, would the group be supportive of like very high level where mountain bikes are allowed to support class 1 mountain bikes? And remove all the jungle.
I'm not ready to support that. I could be convinced to ask the Forest Service to do a study to evaluate that. But I hesitate to say I support that at this point because I don't have enough data. And particularly in this community, I don't have input from other areas of the community of what they think about it.
That's true. I'm like,
it sounds like you would like a presentation on this particular topic in the work session.
Not yet. I want the trails and open space to do the job. All right. At this point, I'm not ready. I could be willing to support going to the Forest Service and say, we'd like you to investigate or to look at Class 1 e-bikes on your trails.
What is,
I wouldn't tell the Forest Service what to do. I would say what we're okay with. Because
I'm okay with them studying.
isn't that the point of this, is to do like a study?
yeah, the hope was that, the hope around this was that they were requesting the Forest Service have a trial area where they did a study. And so then the question is, before you even do that, is there community support for doing such a thing?
Isn't that what you guys are saying, is that you want to support a study?
Well, but that's not what.
That's not what you said.
Well, I think that's what the letter is trying partly to say, please.
Is it okay if I elaborate? After this letter, because there was a lot of confusion, staff did speak to the Forest Service to ask about what they were planning to do. And at the time, they do not have a study planned, but that getting support from communities would be beneficial to them deciding whether they would initiate a study or not. At that time, staff felt that until the Forest Service initiates their process, we might wait to comment. But as this is an opportunity now to re-examine that, the Forest Service has not reached out with a study yet, but the support of communities could
What are
initiate
they
that.
asking for the support that we really want this, or we think we want it after we see the report? Because I want to know the outcome first before I said we're committed to it. And
I don't think anybody's asking.
well,
I think the
wasn't
request is for us to ask the U.S. Forest Service to look at their trails, propose a trial, and we will learn from that experience. And we can say, we don't own those. So it really doesn't matter what we think if we don't like the outcome of that. But we can use the outcome of
To make our
that
decision.
test to make our decision.
That's what I'm asking.
And I think these are two efforts that are simultaneous, but two different parallel lines. And there is no downside of saying to the Forest Service, we're interested in what you can find out. And then going back to the trails and open space and say, why don't you chart what those paths are? And identify what you would, some of the promises from SCAMA were kind of big and vague, so I would ask the Trails and Open Space Committee to define what it is we are looking for them to do with respect to signage or education. Let's put a little context in here. 10 years ago, people were freaked about e-bikes and everywhere had laws forbidding them. I think we've all learned that they can be very reasonable. And I accept the argument from SCAMA that it's not bikes that screw up people, it is the rider. But if we're going further, I've noticed that there's a lot of mixed up information. There was a lot of information coming, I think, from someplace in Montana from the Forest Service, but if you look at it closely, the Forest Service didn't say, yea, verily, that's a great idea, we're going to do that. It said, we are going to give you, the asker, an okay to do that as a reasonable accommodation. That's code for the fact that that guy or gal said, I have a disability. Would you allow me?
So
And I
I
say
think-
that, wait, one more thing. I say that because that's what Breckenridge is looking at for their town trails. They want to do not a blanket okay, but an okay for class 1 and class 2 if you come to the town and prove that you have a disability.
And
I'm
I'll
not
just,
proposing that, I'm just wanting to put it out
Yeah.
there.
that's a great point for what they're doing. It's in a huge contrast to what Frisco does, which is allow class 1s. I personally think class 2s have been throttled. Class 2s have no place in this discussion because as soon as you have a throttle, you have a different type of vehicle and something that requires physical activity. And if someone's disability prevents them from being able to ambulate or bike on a trail, having an assistive device that amplifies their physical activity is very different than a fully motorized, no physical input.
Right, so
required.
you clarified that there's two different things Breck is looking at. First, they're looking at, we're only going to make this accommodation for those who can prove disability. And second, the class 2 throttle. And
Yes.
neither of those are being covered.
Yeah, that's separate from the discussion. I think it's worth firewalling up. But the other piece is, well, you gave one example of where a Forest Service office offered reasonable accommodation. I think that mischaracterizes the bulk of the presentation and other evidence in there, which
My point is, it shouldn't be in here.
I agree with you 100%.
And if we were going to write that letter to the Forest Service, we are not going to use somebody else's form letter. We're going to write our own letter, and it'll be specific, and it will not mention that example.
Sure. And I don't think that reasonable accommodation, like we're not trying to arbitrate like the Americans with Disability Act. What we're trying to do is look at what is a reasonable type of recreation to support. Because I think there is tons of examples from Moab just having opened up all of their trails, or almost all of their trails to e-mountain bikes. It is the future. The truth is, if you're seeing bikes on the trail, you're seeing e-bikes, but you didn't know it because they're almost indistinguishable. And if you look at Europe, the majority of revenues and bike sales have been e-bikes for the last several years.
Well, although that data is great,
Yeah.
that's not our problem to hash through. The Forest Service should be looking at all that.
And we should, but if we have an objection, if we said like, even though the Forest Service is going to do that, we don't want e-bikes, we should tell the Forest Service we are opposed to that. And if we're in favor of it, we should say, hey, we're in favor of it. And they're still going to do their study and make their decision. But they're going to look to the community as to whether or not the community is in support of it.
So, John?
If I can kind of summarize what I'm hearing for. I'm hearing general support from the council for a letter supporting the USFS studying the feasibility of allowing class 1 e-bikes on Summit County trails and also allow mountain bikes.
Thank you.
What I'm hearing also is kind of a split on whether the council is ready to say Keystone supports the use of e-bikes on US Forest.
I think we need to in order to move forward as you recommended.
I think, while a few of us might personally like support that second point, a few folks are waiting to see what the results of the survey would be to the purposes.
That's where I am.
Yeah, and before I'd be willing to support e-bikes on our non-asphalt trails, I would like to see the result of the National Forest Service study and see what it.
We might not want to wait. Who knows?
Yeah, no,
Considering there's really 2 trails, or maybe 3, that don't cross Forest Service land in this town.
I think that to Carol's point about not waiting, though, do you think it might be prudent for us to, it seemed, and I don't want to say this, but it seemed like everyone was on support with what the manager says the first option. So like, that's kind of, I'm considering that done, right? But do you think it'd be good to give staff guidance to reach out to Moab and see what their experience has been on those trails? So then we might, because the U.S. Forest Service, right, could take 3 months to do this, could take 5 years, or could never do this survey. And so I think that us pinning our trail decisions on a U.S. Forest survey that may or may not happen is kind of, I think that, I forget how Carol described it, but 2 different parallels, right? Maybe we ask staff to look at what other communities have had success or not successful.
Considering we have 2 trails in this town that potentially don't cross Forest Service lines and put people in jeopardy of violating Forest Service guidelines that I've been able to identify.
Well, I'd like to ask the Trails and Open Space to look at that problem and come back.
Well, and I'd like to understand what the communities that are involved with those right next to those trails, what those residents believe.
If I can weigh in here, I think this is a task for open space and trails.
Yes.
And I think we need to strongly advertise that this is going to be a discussion of open space and trails Granted that those are in communities, those are also public right of ways too, though. So we need weighing from the neighborhoods and the community as a
Now, the
whole.
question is, for instance, the elders, is that a public right of way
Yeah.
or is that an easement?
Either way, an easement, it's an easement, but it's a public easement, it's a public access easement, as a phrase that I use. Which, as far as we are concerned, is not just the public who lives there, it's,
Okay, but I will say the people, the public that lives there are the ones that are clearing the lots. Right now, they don't want to clear the lots.
Obviously, they want the town to do that.
well, no,
They don't want bikes.
well, that's why my point is, this needs to be a strong reach out and help in space and trails recommendation, I think would be the best way to go forward. Staff will, in the meantime, if we get thumbs up, draft a letters, as I stated, supporting a USFS study on the feasibility of Class 1 e-bikes on all trails.
I would love to see
Is the ask for trails in open space, is that gonna be specific? I know we identified 2 trails, but I think that like, I don't recall us ever talking about as a whole in Keystone, what we envision trail usage as. And I think that that's important to talk about, and not only for the 2 trails we have now, but if we annex other areas that have trails, if we expand, if we build new trails, what's our position? And it's more than just 2 trails.
Yeah, if we create something like the Frisco back out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because one of the options will also be go to Forest Service and say, for those trails that are ours, that cross your land a few times, can we get some kind of peninsula deal, right? So, I don't,
Well, the difference is, I think, Frisco maintains the trails.
They
well,
do.
that is part of what we asked for trails and open space.
And
to
right
look
now,
at.
all the
Yes.
trails that, for instance, the Soda Creek Trail is actually maintained, part of our town is maintained by Summit County. And the second trail, 2 I mentioned, is maintained by Summit County and not a,
What was the second one?
it's Settlers Creek.
Yeah, but there are other trails too that could very easily come into, like the Rossiter Trail, for example, if the golf course parcels are annexed into town. So there's certainly a possibility for trails that currently exist or may at some point exist in the future.
This is worth some more deliberation by the
Right.
trails folks.
I wanted to bring up one thing though. Trails, because it says there's gonna be a lot of education required. And a lot of data collection will be done. That's great. I just worry, who does that? Is it staff? Are we as a town going to do all that, or was that?
For the study, that's.
No, this was
So this is part of
kind of
Scamba's
ongoing.
offer, but that was my point.
The details on that would be great.
I didn't know.
Following up with Samba,
I just didn't know if they were offering to do that.
they were,
They were, but it
but
was.
there was not a
pretty
detail.
generic.
Mhm.
Like they were
There
gonna
was no
put,
detailed
the only
proposal, it's
specifics
just-
was to put signs in bike shops. That's probably good. Is that enough? I would like to hear what the trails and open space people think about
Yeah,
that.
So we did in fact discuss that, and the reason for placing them in bike shops was because there was a significant concern about tourists who come to rent.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. It's just not enough,
It's just
probably.
the
And that's not
broader,
what they presented. They presented more than that, more
Yeah,
than just.
trailheads, outreach events.
But
Workshops, workshops.
If it's at the
I was excited about
trailheads,
workshops.
are they going to pay for the signs and place them? Are they going to look to the town? Those are the details we're looking for. That's it.
There was the impression that was given that I,
Yeah, well,
I mean, I think that's part of our wayfinding study, right? Again, I'm gonna look at Breckenridge. You go to Breckenridge, you have a wood post that has all the information about the trail right on it. And that's a very good, helpful wayfinding. And so I think that that would be part of our wayfinding.
my point, I just didn't know who was gonna wait.
they were presenting themselves as a source for education.
I mean,
I imagine that means we're paying for the infrastructure.
Well,
I thought that meant that they would pay for it.
yeah, as far as like education, data and reports, I think they were offering to do that. As far as
That's why I
signage,
took it.
we probably want to have control over our own signage with their input.
Well, just mail it.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, that's, yeah, follow up with.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it is fair to go back to trails and open space and ask for something more concrete.
For trail designation.
For trail designation and for
Within the town.
within the town. And then have them come back later after they've done that with some sort of recommendation.
Yes, with one addition on the designation is like community involvement, right? Because
Oh, we have to.
yeah, I feel like if you just tell trails and open space, tell me what you want all the trails to be used for, they're gonna be like dirt bikes, mountain bikes and everything.
And to that end, I think staff would need to help them.
I actually
got
want
trails.
I don't think that would work.
I don't think they would say that because there's a nice balance of.
You have naysayers as well.
Oh,
Well, there were people that just definitely want to walk their grandkids with a stroller and they don't. So there's a good mix of
But I think it's important
walking
to
and biking.
clarify the difference between the regional trails and the community trail, which is all paved, and the other trails that you're really talking about here. So it's, you have real clarity in what you're addressing.
I think we're all kind of on the same page, right?
Yes.
Do you think
Good
we're on
job.
the same?
Thank
Well, then, John,
Are we on the same page?
I actually do believe you are all on the same page. I guess the question is, staff will be drafting a much shorter, clearer letter supporting the Forest Service diving into this, not supporting any decision here or now, and actually after the study, Forest Service, if they do the study, would probably come back with a proposal. Then it would be proper to take specific action supporting or declining their plan in the future.
The big picture, I'm sorry.
Are we okay drafting that letter? Do you want it? We'll email it out, but do you want it to come back for approval before we send it to the Forest Service? It's, as we said, it's a 2 to 3 paragraph letter.
Like you send it to us, if somebody has an issue.
Right.
Yeah, 48 hours.
I want to make just the big picture. This is a huge asset for our town, your
Yes.
biking. And so, I mean, I'm glad, this is, we're kind of talking about it. And I'm glad that the Trails and Open Spaces pursuing this. And I do want, we all want to look at the north side here. That's what I think about, really becoming much more of an asset long term. But again, I'm a little naive. I think kind of the compromise we've come to today is the next step. Maybe it's only a half step, but it's the next step. And that I need personally to get to that point later.
So I hate to continue this conversation, but do we put in the letter, we suggest the north side of Keystone as the test area?
Oh, I think it's jumped in that until we get community feedback.
We have 2 very avid bikers on this council.
I'm not an avid biker, I just enjoy, like, I think I went 5 times last summer.
Yeah.
Aaron went 5 times last week.
Has your bike been broken?
Exactly.
I think the Forest Service will probably have their own ideas, so we don't need to suggest it. They may naturally choose that because this is an area that is, they actually do allow e-bikes above Freight Gulch Road only.
Oh, no, it's all the way across Keystone above Franklin.
Yeah, above Freight Gulch, they allow it within a particular time of year, so it seems natural that they might then choose that zone. I think that Scomba was saying that they were hoping that the back ranch trails would be chosen. But I mean, I don't really,
So we're not gonna.
whatever they want to pick, if they pick something, I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got your.
You have your marching orders. All right.
How do you want to approach this?
All right, your next item, future appointment process for vacancies.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on to our planner once again, Jessica Hertzberg.
This is pretty straightforward. Staff just wants to understand what council or how the appointment and reappointment process should be conducted for future appointments to boards and commissions that we have. As you know, there are some potential appointments on tonight's meeting agenda. So just an understanding of what the process would be, what process staff should take to ensure that that appointment process is adequate for council. One specific question was if a member's term is expiring and they want to be reappointed, it would be good to know if council wants to appoint them automatically or open it up to the public so that there's the opportunity for contested appointments and not just reappointments.
Carol?
What would be the default if we do nothing tonight? We just continue to stare at you. How would you proceed?
We,
I wanna know what
as
would
in-
change that.
As in the current appointments, we've opened them up to anyone. Interestingly, with the Planning and Zoning Commission, we had 2 people who wanted to be reappointed for the 2 vacancies at the very last second. And we had literally at the last second, a 3rd person submit a letter expressing interest in one of the seats that is open for reappointment. So that is the default right now.
So.
And how did you proceed in that case? You have 2 people
Just as we
who are
did
there
with
now,
the
they like to continue, and all of a sudden, person number 2-3 says, oh, wait,
As we're doing tonight, we presented 3 letters to you to review, and you choose the 2. Now,
okay.
that's our default right here. Different places have different practices too, especially when you have term limits. Well, it's all up to you. I think it's all up to you guys. I'm a fan of reappointments, and personally, if I were on the council, I would like to see all interested applicants, but I would lean strongly towards reappointing someone unless there was a very specific reason, like that person never followed council recommendations, council proposals, council is constantly overturning their decisions.
Question. My question is, if it's automatic reappointment, why even have term limits?
Well, because you get reappointed once, and then you're off.
Oh, so you're saying automatic one time?
Yes, if you're eligible, if you're still eligible.
Well, I thought.
Why even have terms?
Well, that's right. But they're saying maybe you're automatically done once.
That's why I kind of said,
But
my preference is it be open, but my recommendation is unless there's a specific reason to kick someone, because that's what it would feel like. Even though their term expired, it would feel like they're being kicked off the council.
I think you make a strong point that you should heavily consider someone's demonstrated commitment, the fact that we've already chosen them.
Yeah.
But I also agree it shouldn't be automatic.
I agree 100%. So I'm with the process that we have today, and it's like what will potentially happen this afternoon. We'll have people that will be reappointed, and maybe it's all of them, or maybe not all of them. A new person. We need to open it up. We don't want to look like we're a closed group to the town, where we're looking for new ideas all the time.
Okay,
So
and
that's fine.
the other question is, do you want to continue doing appointments like that? We interviewed the planning commission applicants for the very first round. Council interviewed them all. Is that something you feel we did not well, the way we worked it out, we actually couldn't do our interviews this time around. Because we set the application deadline far too close to this meeting. And it's impossible to arrange for all the applicants to be at this meeting to do the interviews on that short notice. We could, going forward, continue to do interviews. Staff would tweak the application deadlines.
I think the only thing, for me, the only thing an interview would do is increase the chance of somebody who's not on the commission. The reason I say that, right, is because when I look at, and I'm just looking at the P and Z folks right now, of the five, the one that I don't know is the one that's not on the commission, and I haven't had FaceTime with them, right? And unless I knew them through the outside, like, so all I think that an interview would do would help get different bodies in there. So I would support offering the opportunity for an interview, not necessarily requiring it, but having that as an opportunity if a candidate did want.
I would strongly recommend they use the same process for. So if you're offering in, well, I'd say if you're going to interview one person, it should be arranged.
Then why didn't we do the same process we did originally with these? And I know you explained the deadline was different, but like for Tim, David, Diane, and Melanie, we interviewed them at some point. So why didn't we do an interview for this one as well? Because that's not the same process. Yeah, and what I'm getting at.
I'm going to blame Lindsay for that one.
What I'm getting at is like if John was given the opportunity, right, who has not been sat for us to interview, we would have then, I know it was 2 years ago, but we would have interviewed those four and had
But
the
it was an
opportunity.
entirely different council that interviewed you.
See, I'm a little different. I would be comfortable getting the resumes or the applications from all of the folks. I'd be comfortable with staff making a recommendation to us on who they should be on the council. We're basically looking at that. We have an opportunity to look at the resumes and then make a determination whether we want to accept the staff recommendation or pick something else.
So you're saying staff
We do the interviews, the prep work up front, give us recommendations, but we would see all of the candidates.
I'd be okay with that.
So staff would be empowered to say, we don't recommend this person,
They'd be empowered to say we recommend the following.
which would not necessarily be inclusive of all applicants.
Staff is not a fan of that.
I know.
However, that's how Summit County works. And I believe that's the way the majority of the towns in Summit County work as well.
Is that just based on the criteria that we would like to have a representation of the most diverse in our town represented?
Now, it's
And then that would be
you
your
as a
criteria.
council make the determination on how you want the makeup of the planning and zoning committees to be. And if there might be a council that absolutely doesn't want, I don't see why, but there might be a council that does not want the diversity of opinions. They want a rubber stamp planning and zoning commission.
I wanted to bring this notice. I don't know who's done well this on these right now. So I see these, resumes, and they're all good. But for the folks that are on, I mean, it's hard for me without kind of having a Q&A or asking somebody, who hasn't done well. I mean, I don't know if any of these people, what their attendance has been.
And I think that's something that staff can definitely put forward in future packets. This is a current planning commission member who's attended 85% of the meetings. Staff has not observed any unnecessary conflict caused by this member. And you need conflict. boards, councils, commissions need conflict. Talking like troublemakers, you know.
Well, look at the other side of the coin. Let's say there is someone you're gonna recommend against, that's gonna be a public document, is it not? I would think that would be, maybe pause as to what you want to put in there and make us wonder how. useful it
That's
is.
why staff does not want to make a
Yeah, so
recommendation.
I would agree with you. I don't think it's your position to have to make that. Advisory boards work for us, not for the staff. We should know who they are. And yet at the same time, I also agree with John's other point that experience is, as long as there's not something negative that could come out if we were prompted with the right questions in the interviews, experience matters. Those two gals who talked to us today, they're as good as they are because they've been doing this for a while. So unless there's a reason not to, I would lean toward them, but we are fortunate that we have more applicants than we need. That is not true across the county.
So you're saying yes on the interviews?
I'm saying yes on the interviews.
And clarifying, interviews for which commissions and boards? Just county, just planning and zoning.
I think you teed this up to be both the planning and zoning and the trails office based into that.
It
There's
could also apply
17
to
people.
the business advisory board.
Is-
Boards and commissions.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We relied on the previous CDD to screen the open space and trail applicants.
Community development.
So
Because there's 17 spots and two alternates.
if I can weigh in, planning and zoning to me is, well, not just to me, to the law is a very different animal than advisory committees because they can make binding decisions.
Yes, yes.
Versus just advising us or sending us the recommendations and we act or
I
don't.
agree with that on the planning.
So are we, the interviews, are we saying can be virtual, asked in person? Are they, here's 5 questions, submit a video? I'm just
We
asking
could,
the question.
consider a policy whereby if any one of them is unavailable for the interview time we have chosen, then they would all do remote to make that equivalent.
Could do.
But you could,
Well, no, that's the question.
but you could also, all the open. When we go out for the applications, we should specify when those interviews will occur. And you expect the candidate to make themselves available for the interview.
But what if somebody knows they can commit to the normal meeting time, but to ask me to come into this is going to put me in a bind with my boss.
Can you be remote for P and Z? I forgot. It's a general question. Yes.
I think remote or in person interviews is not that much of a bias.
Yeah, okay.
So can I
So yes to remote.
summarize?
10 minutes later, please.
So I think what we heard is that we don't want to just do automatic. So we do want to make it available to anybody. And number 2 is that we do, for B and Z, we do interviews. Yes, I do think it's a very different committee. And for others, we go with the recommendation.
We didn't have that conversation yet.
Well, that's what I thought.
That's what you want. Okay, so what are your other considerations?
So
That's not-
Carol, the only thing I think that you might be disagreeing with on that is
Is
the last
point
part.
3, absolutely, and we have not had a
So
conversation
1.2,
about it.
Yeah, however, we did not interview for P and Z. I mean, we did not interview for Trails and Open Space. We did not interview for Business Advisory. We did not interview for marketing.
And are we satisfied with that?
I think we were, you were one of those nervous.
I'm saying, have a discussion.
I think there's only so much bandwidth we have. And I think that you nailed it when you said that planning and zoning can make binding decisions. The other ones simply advise us.
Right. I concur. Now that we've thought about the pros and cons, yeah.
That being said, tonight we get to make a final decision without.
Yeah, that's unique.
But as a monopoly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now are we all on board with all three?
I did have a question.
Yes.
Because the decisions we'll have to make tonight are also, I assume, how the term length of these individuals.
For, you will for the Trails and Open Space Advisory Board, because there are different terms available for appointment. For the Planning and Zoning Commission, all 4 vacancies are for a new 3-year term.
But in the future, and this is not in the future, unless there's a filled vacancy, the terms at each appointment cycle should be for the same term.
Do we have the ability to push back this until we can interview folks?
Not planning and zoning.
But you can't proceed with any applications until you have the full board.
Well, they need to make a decision before.
Can we extend the current folks until we can?
No, because they're specifically defined what the terms are. And what the requirements.
Oh, it's not just me.
We can push off the sign.
So why don't you have the discussion? So,
Okay. So we have discussed a LED sign coming into town for both emergency and just informative messaging, traffic control, parking issues. I've looked into this a little bit. And before I go much farther into this, I want buy-in from council on whether to go forward or not. So to put up and buy an LED sign, I mean, something similar to what you see down by US Bank in Dillon, except ours would just be a one-sided sign, not a two-sided sign. Cost for this is going to be somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000 to put up a single panel as large as each of the panels there, run electricity and build the structure and surrounding landscaping for the sign. So that's the first issue you have to think about. Second issue is location. This would be a whole lot easier, except CDOT has very tight and specific restrictions on what type of messaging can go on a sign located within the CDOT right. So I've identified a spot there as you're coming into town before you get to the West Keystone townhomes, which are right next to the pines there.
well, those other pines, those condos belong to the pines.
Okay, so they're part of the pines. Vale's golf course parcel extends pretty close to the actual paved roadway. So if we got use from, and I've actually addressed this with two of the decision makers for Vale, an easement, a license, or even outright dedication of land. Right there, facing away from the townhomes, we deal with all sorts of shielding, to make sure these are not in Vegas on Highway 6. Something I can assure you anyways, that's for future discussion anyways. To me, that's pretty much the only reasonable spot to put this, because it's close enough to the road that it's highly visible from the road. It's not, it has a long sight line as you're driving eastbound on Highway 6 where you'd be able to see the sign. It's not right up next to the current Keystone sign that the resort put up 40 years ago, which is a pretty sign. And I don't think we want to just stack up a bunch of welcome to Keystone signs, basically. I feel very strongly that we would be able to work with Vail Resorts to get use of a parcel there to put this sign. I would also I'd reach out to Vail Resorts for financial help too, because what I foresee on this sign are numerous things. First of all, on busy ski days, I see us basically just switching between two signs. One sign showing 2 lanes going that way, a lane highlighted. Arapahoe Basin, North Shuttle Lot, and Power Line lots. You stay in the left lane. Mountain House lots, River Run lot, so you stay in the right lane. And then alternating with status of the Keystone parking lots, kind of as you pull into Breckenridge, it'll tell you if the lot's full. So you know not to turn down and even try it. That would be incredibly beneficial to Keystone Resort, helping get people into the mountain quicker for the less parking, less traffic hassles. I also envision us advertising the Cane Sea festivals and any other events that we have on. KOAs putting together a 5-kilometer race, something like that would be up on the side. Welcoming certain conferences to town would not be a bad thing for the town. Welcome the American Planning Association to town when they have their conference this year. And then also town information. Town council vacancy. If you're interested, reach out to clerk at KeystoneCO.gov. And finally, emergency messaging is necessary. But the point is, I see a lot of benefit to Keystone and Vail Resorts. I'm not in any way anticipating a financial contribution, but I certainly would not feel bad asking for financial contribution, given the use that such a sign could have for the resort. I feel regardless, it would be beneficial. So those are, and then, finally, any thoughts on design? I'm thinking we stick as close to the existing looking Keystone sign, other than the big towers of stone. It would have to be a natural sign regardless. And I guess I want feedback on all of this.
Thank you, Ken. As far as design, I have some good ones to choose from in Las Vegas, if you've ever heard about it. It has some new
They know how to do signs.
So my question, right, and I think about signs, right, I think about the Dillon one. It's at a stoplight. So you're switching between variable messages, and if you get stuck at the stoplight, you get the opportunity to read those. Were any of our one stoplights in town looked at for the location of this? And if so, why was that not suggested?
CDOT right away issues.
Okay.
And well, our one stoplight, would have to be on one side or the other of the stoplight. And a good spot, to tell the truth, would be that beautiful child sculpture thing there.
Here I say this in front of Ken, can we relocate?
I think that one.
It's not on
we
our
could be
road.
able to see that road. Yeah, okay, that's on CDOT.
Yeah.
So that ugly trailer-based one that
Yeah.
Keystone Resort uses, that this would no longer be necessary, but how come that's okay? Is it because they only talk about
Because
traffic?
they only talk about traffic. They can't advertise in festivals, they can't.
I think that John was leaning towards a good point, which is if I understand where you're describing it, is this east or west of the current Keystone site?
If far east,
Far east. Okay, so at least it's in the 45 mph zone.
You know where that turn lane going left into the nothing?
Yes,
You're going, yeah,
Right.
so it's right there.
gotcha.
actually a little farther east, and there is, as you come up, you'll definitely be able to see at least 2 cycles of signage on that as you're driving.
So the people driving really fast, they will at least have been aware that there wasn't a sign.
Well, people driving the real festival have also probably missed the Avis enforcement sign. Before that, so.
Sure.
So as to the design, I agree with you and John. I think that Dillon one is just, doesn't fit our environment, and so I appreciate where you're going with that. Secondly, I looked at your recommendation and I thought, I always thought this sign out here at US 6 near here to sort of remind people that this is the center of town, but I concur with your decision, especially the line of sight. I think that's wise. But I do have pause about the decision to have a single panel, and here's why. First of all, to help our partner Keystone Resort be awesome, but you'll also be able to help babies. So that's great.
Yes.
All those things, you know, welcome planners, et cetera, those are great, but you know, my original and keen interest is using that for crises, emergency situations, in which case, if you're leaving town, you're not going to get that message. So is there could we consider at least have it priced out to have a 2 diagonal, one that can be seen, same location, but can be seen from both sides?
I can certainly look into that.
Please look at it. We may reject it. but-
Well, one thing to alleviate your concern a little bit, the town is going to buy some of those orange variable message boards
You mean the ugly things on the,
for an emergency purpose only, not to be like Keystone and leave it out in the right of way all the time. But if there is an emergency situation, real loud, Breckenridge has 30 of those.
and would that be on the same, could we put that on the same system? That's starting to sound.
No, this would have to be adhere to CDOT rules, so emergency or.
You know, I mean, whoever's inputting the information.
It would be 2 different
Okay.
apps.
So I get that. That's a valid, but ask the question.
Yeah, no, I'll certainly look for
That'd
that,
be great.
see if it's, I haven't even checked the sight lines of that location going
It's
westbound.
It's a good site. I can give up on my idea.
As option 3, real quick, if that sightline doesn't work, is there an alternative on the northern side of the highway that would accomplish exiting or second sign?
Yeah, the right of way is much farther, closer to the road on that side.
Yeah, not necessarily,
Yes.
but like maybe that's part of the proposal.
But that would double the cost too.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I'll look into the feasibility of another sign. Not another sign,
Just a,
dual side
yes.
sign.
And you brought up the townhouse, and I thought they could be concerned, but we could put up a fence to block that light.
Yeah, and
If we decide to go that way.
And if we, I think if the dual sided sign is not feasible, we do these one at a time.
Okay.
Only other question I had, which I don't expect you to have the answer right now. I think Dylan was looking at a cost to repair a part of their electrical sign recently. What is the life expectancy? Like, it's not like the beautiful Keystone sign that's been there for 40 years.
And I have it.
So what's the life expectancy and what's the?
And what it was the signs that they currently have down at the US Bank location had a 10 to 15-year life expectancy. I think they're at 11 or 12 right now. That's why they have to replace them. The signs I've priced that I've used to come up with this are a much better designed
Well, let's change
Has
to
to
10
be
years.
more.
Yeah, more design for our environment up here. So it's somewhere between the 15 to 20-year life expectancy.
Okay.
It sounds like you have direction to proceed. Is that what I'm hearing from council?
Yes, I agree with the style.
All right.
Okay.
What I would propose now, since it's now 6:45, is let's take a look at the grant piece, perhaps doing other business.
In fact, Summit Foundation is hopefully going to be at our next meeting. And I would like to do the entire grants piece with the Summit Foundation.
So we'll discuss it at the work session.
Yeah.
And then after that rep is gone, we'll make decisions.
Possibly, yeah.
I don't want to make decisions wrong.
No, this is work, this is clear, this takes a lot of work session. A grant program.
Yeah, because what some of the foundation is going to be doing is giving us a presentation of what they're doing, right?
Well, no, what Summit Foundation is going to do is they will come talk about two things. The nicotine tax plan that we're going forward with. And the other towns up here currently run their individual grant programs also through the Summit Foundation as donor advised funds.
They do.
So that will be one of several choices.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if we want to go that way this early in our grant program. So council is kind of set a benchmark of here's the types of, you can say these are the types of projects we want to run, but I think you should really see what the asks are like before you do that. I think, and this will be a discussion, whether we want to let this be a donor advised fund from the beginning or get a couple of years of council actually making this.
Silverthorne and Frisco use them?
Yes.
Because I know I've talked to their mayors, and they said one of the most important things and most fulfilling things that some of the council members have had is serving on their grant committee, selecting the grants for the town.
Yes, well, these are also
Would we feel that this
are we ready
conversation?
to talk about, we don't have the budget to do the large economic development
No,
grants.
and that's, can we talk about this at a future?
Yeah,
meeting?
let's do that later. I'm just
Yeah,
clarifying what I knew, that they also ran their own returns. All right, with that, the work session is adjourned. And we'll come back at